Hi, my name's Bella. Adoption is when when one living thing, and not like a plant, like one animal gets given to another family. It could also be humans, ducks. It could be almost anything. I'm adopted.
What does it feel like to be adopted?
If you remember, it could be very, very hard through the course of your life.
What makes it hard?
Knowing that you'll leave your family, you leaving all that stuff, starting new friends, starting new family, everything's hard. Even new bedrooms.
What's good about adoption?
You get, like, if you're like me, your birth mom couldn't take care of you so much. So it's good that you could be taken care of. You could never really know something.
What do you mean?
Like, I never got to know my little brother. I'm a person of 3 siblings. One I didn't even get to know.
Who are the two that you do know?
Sissy and Nigel.
And then you have a little brother you've never met?
Yeah. His name is Ian.
Do people know you're adopted when they first meet you?
No.
No.
I don't really tell other people outside of church.
Is it an important thing to you?
Kind of.
If you were going to tell a brand new little baby about adoption, what would you tell them?
I tell them that you might go from one family all the way to another family. You could even go across the world. It can be hard if you remember it, but if you never remember, you just consider that this is your parents and you had no other.
But you know that you had other parents, right?
Yeah. It was hard.
Yeah. Does it make you sad sometimes?
Yeah.
Why does it make you sad?
I never got to know them. It can be hard in some cases, but it goes to be yes in others. This is the hard side. This is the yes side.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Bye.
Oh, thank you so much, Bela, for sharing. That was amazing. And as I thought about this topic for today, I had all these different ideas of what we were going to do for the sermon. And it quickly became apparent that this is just way more than what I thought. And that was actually when my friend Robert called me and we had this amazing conversation. And I said, you know what, Robert? Let's do this for the sermon. And I am so grateful that he said yes. So I'd like to introduce Robert Eland, the amazing Robert Eland. Thank you so much for doing this, Robert. So appreciative. And I wanted to start out by just saying, can you just let us know what your attachment to adoption is? How do you know about adoption?
Well, Carrie, thank you for asking me to join you on this conversation. It's big, it's really big. But my story, in a nutshell, I was adopted from Tegucigalpa, Honduras, in 1968. I have no background, birth story, birth family records, anything. So, I don't know my birthday. I'll be 55 this next year, and I don't know if I'll ever really know my story. my adoptive parents, which I will just call mom and dad from now on, I was young enough that that's all I remember. That's all I know. You know, they're as real as it gets. Uh, yeah, they were very loving, caring, and open. I don't think I could have been brought up in a better situation. All that being said, there were gaps along the way. There were things that made it hard sometimes.
Absolutely. We're going to get into those in a second. I just want to give you guys my background. I was adopted around the same time as Robert. The difference is I was adopted into a family that I could pass as being a family member, and that presents its own complications. But same with Robert. I was adopted by Catholic Social Services, and I don't know my exact birthday. The birthday I celebrate may not be the day I was actually born, and they did that on purpose so that you would not be able to find out who your biological parents were, because it was very, very closed and very private back then. Yeah, so Robert, what are some of those difficulties? Do you want to talk about some of those?
Well, even with what you just said, with like adoptions being closed, that already puts a stigma on it, you know, and a kind of a shame. And that's hard. That's really hard. With me, I was adopted into a white family, and it was very obvious, you know, from go that I was different, you know. Um, I remember people come up to my mom. I sometimes could pass with my dad. He got real dark in the summer and had black hair. So I sometimes could pass, but with my mom, there were always questions at grocery stores and in line and whatnot. And, you know, and I would hear them say, you know, oh, what a special thing you did. What a nice thing for him. And that to me was I don't know, like how do you, as a child, like what does that mean?
I remember I have a big gap in age from my brothers. My mom she had two babies and then was unable to have any more children naturally. So adoption is natural too, but she she wanted a daughter, and so the adoption process took a long time back then. So my brothers are 9 and 11 years older than me. And when people find that out, they're like, oh, were you a mistake? Were you one of those oopsie babies? I'm like, no, I was actually adopted. And the response is, oh, I'm sorry. And I think they mean, I'm sorry that I assumed you were oopsie, but it comes out strange when that's your response to someone saying I was adopted. Oh, I'm sorry.
And even in our little conversation that we had before this, I just always assumed that if you were adopted and you had the same skin color, like how much easier that would be. Hmm. And then in our conversations, no, that's not true.
It's not necessarily the case. People so when I would meet people and my dad would introduce me as his daughter, and my mom would introduce me, oh, I can see the resemblance, as if that is what is needed to be a happy family. And in my head, I would think, no, you don't. You don't see the resemblance. We don't look anything alike. But I think people would mean well with it, but it didn't sit well with me. And go ahead.
I always look for the resemblance, you know, and to never be able to find it. You know, I would look at my dad and, you know, could I have his eyes or his nose or his ears? And it didn't happen. You know, I'm the youngest of 5. I didn't look anything like my siblings, but they sure looked a lot alike. You know, I have an adopted brother as well, a few years older than me, and he's African American Mexican. He didn't look like me, you know, but when you added, you know, 3 biological, 2 adopted into that mix, you know, we're already a party of 5 now. And then we're very colorful, you know. But I was, you know, I still like, you know, you kind of want to find that resemblance.
Yeah, that's why when I actually had biological children, it's still hard for me to see resemblance. People will say, "Oh, Colin looks like you," or "You have Dylan's eyes," or something. It's still hard for me to see that because there have been so many times when I was told that I looked like somebody else, and so I have this messed up idea of what looking like somebody is and what their characteristics are.
And why is that a badge of honor? Why is it like
right.
a blue ribbon that you look, oh, you look like your dad, or you look like your mom, or like, why is that a conversation where it's such a positive thing?
Exactly. That's true.
It's very interesting.
It is. Now, you were adopted from another country, and it's pretty unlikely that you'll ever know anything about your biological parents. Have you done anything? Have you tried any searching? Have you done any DNA research?
I right before my dad passed, we did a family reunion, and my dad was always into genealogy. And I have to admit it, at 13 and 14, when he was really into it, at that age, I really understood that I wasn't a part of the family. And that was really hard for me because generally I felt pretty like this is my family. But when you start doing like genealogy and DNA, you realize like that isn't your tree. I mean, it is, but it's not biological. And I think that's hard when we have these discussions and you have to use biological parents, as opposed to my adoptee parents. Like if you just say mom and dad, people are like, well, who are you talking about? Well, my mom and dad, I don't know. Did I get off subject?
No. I don't think there is getting off subject with this. I think there's so much surrounding it, and I know that we're not going to cover everything. But I actually did do Ancestry.com and 23andMe just because I was curious about what I was, what my background is. I kind of knew I was part Irish. I kind of knew that I had some Scandinavian, but otherwise I didn't know anything. And it's really interesting when you get on one of those sites and you have to start building your family tree. And I automatically started making a family tree that included my brothers and my parents and their parents. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. If I really want to find out the genetic history, this family tree doesn't help at all with this. And it was a really interesting, I don't know, it should have been obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious at first. It was a weird little aside that I noticed.
Well, now I know what you asked me. So I did a DNA. I found out my background, which I was pretty sure what it was going to be. But it did, and I wasn't aware that this was going to happen. It did kick up DNA matches for fifth and sixth cousins. Mm-hmm. And to this day, it's a kick in the gut after 50 some years of really feeling I was on an island. And I still don't know what I'm going to do with that information. My intellectual side says you absolutely could trace that back to first cousins or aunts and uncles or, biological siblings or parents. But my heart side, with my mom still living, I don't honestly know, and I think a lot of adopted kids feel this way, that if finding out your truth somehow lessens them feeling like they're your mom or dad.
That is a really, really good point, because I know that my mom was constantly in fear that my biological mother would come back and take me away. I mean, even when I was 14, 15 years old, she was, and I felt that. That had an effect on me. And I know I actually did start looking for some biological information because I wanted some medical background. And I started the search, and then right after that, my dad passed away. And I stopped searching because I didn't want it to be that I was trying to replace my dad. I wanted it to be because of just medical reasons, and I wanted it to be for the right reasons. So I stopped for a while, and then 2 years later, my mom passed away, and I just never really got back into it. And when I did the DNA search, I had my results, and about a year after that, just recently, a few months ago, I was matched to somebody who could possibly be my aunt. And I contacted them. I sent, you can send a message in these programs. I haven't heard a thing. And that's a bit of a gut punch too, because I think that either means she wants nothing to do with this information and maybe knew that sister, brother, whatever, had a child, or it means that she had no idea. And who is this person contacting her? And the fact that it was so private and it was so awful for somebody to be pregnant that they had to hide it and that they had to make these difficult choices, that just, it hurts my heart.
Well, there are two things that jump out at me when you said that. And one is, I think we do as adoptees, or at least I do, feel like you kind of revert back to the whole, like, what a special thing they did for you. Why would you then want to look or search or find or be a part of something that was done out of love? And so that personal guilt and that personal shame, bubbles up. And then the second part of what I heard you say is there's only two answers to them not responding. One is the shame of maybe the story behind it, or they don't want anything to do with you. Like, as adoptees, there's only two sides. Either they respond because they want me in the family, or they don't respond because they don't want me in the family. But there's a whole big gallery of other things that it could be. And as an intellectual adult, you understand that, get that. But your gut reaction is they don't want anything to do with me, or they're ashamed of me, or they never knew about me. Like those are like the simple from the gut options, and that's it. And how sad is that for us?
Well, I think it was also sort of ingrained in me too, because I would watch these. I mean, for a while, it was really big to have on those talk shows. Remember, like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and all those shows where they would have these amazing, beautiful reunion stories of adoptees meeting their biological parents, and it was wonderful, and they had this great thing. And if you talk to people who are in that business, they say that is the rarity. It does not usually turn out that way. And that's sad. It was very discouraging.
So how do we fill that hole? How do we rectify in ourselves that loss or that lack of gain, or like that ideal, like I found my biological family and they want everything to do with me? Or is it I have no way of ever finding out, and if I did, they probably wouldn't want anything to do with me.
Right.
How, what, I mean, I don't know what loving adoptee parent could give us to fill that, because I think for me, it's a very real thing.
And how do you go around the guilt of everybody saying, oh, what a wonderful thing your family did, but inside feeling this sense of something, like I can't even describe what the sense is, because I've always been told to, oh, you should be so lucky. You're so lucky that this happened. But there's still a sense of loss, or a sense of
longing for identity.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And how do you rectify those two things?
I think conversations like this.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good segue into an idea that you had.
Did we rehearse this?
I know.
I am wanting and willing to start a support group for families with adopted children. I had a lot of support growing up in Wisconsin called the Open Door Society, which was potlucks of families with adopted kids. So I saw a lot of families growing up that looked like mine, and a lot of friends that looked like me, and it was great. And I believe there's a space and a need for kids to be. Everybody knows or should know, or maybe they don't know. I love kids and I'm very in tune to kids, but there needs to be a safe place where they can have discussions about their feelings and thoughts, about their families, and where parents can lean on each other and say, I'm going through this, and it would be nice to have a sounding board. So if there's a need and a want, and people want to reach out to me to say, yes, sign me up for a support group or communication group, or whatever you want to call it, I'm here and available and willing.
That's amazing. Robert, thank you so much. I know we didn't cover everything. It's way too much in a 20-minute sermon time, but I really, really appreciate your willingness to do this with me, and you have made this absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.